guys in the dark.
Our fire department happens to be haunted by a man named Mr. Jones. The story dates back many years before we built a new station. Mr. Jones had died at the old firehouse from a heart attack after battling a house fire. The chief had told me the story once. I went to the restroom, which was off to the hallway. On my way in, I sat my brand new pack of cigarettes on the file cabinet right outside of the doorway. When I came out, the cigarettes were lined end to end down the hallway. Another firefighter about a year later also had a Mr. Jones experience. He and another guy were watching TV one night when the clock above the TV had flown off the wall, landed in the center of the room, spun around a few times, and then landed on a bookshelf. All of the haunted firehouse stories never really had me believing until Mr. Jones had given me a story of my own. I have this thing about open shower curtains. I happen to notice when they are open, and I close them. I had walked into the restroom to clean it, but I happened to forget a trash bag. The shower curtain was open. When I walked back in, about 30 seconds later, the curtain was closed. That is the only story that is personal. Other than that, we have doors that open and close by themselves. Lights that happen to go on and off. Stuff like that. So that happens to be my story, and I'm sticking to it. We were responding to a call in a dark, secluded industrial area one night when the engine suddenly sputtered, stalled, and coasted to a stop right in front of a railroad crossing with no gates. Just as we had stopped, a freight train had came through. The engine started right up and ran fine after the train had passed. The second example happened one blazing hot summer afternoon when we were called to a highway construction site for a burning shanty. We pulled up, began advancing the headline, when it suddenly seemed like the hose had become tangled up in the hose bed. We had gone back to the engine to check, and just then the shanty had blew up into thousands of tiny pieces. There were no tangles in the hose whatsoever, and it wasn't caught or hung up anywhere that we could see. Whatever it was, I'm pretty sure it was our guardian angel watching us both of those days, and I'm definitely very thankful for it. My uncle had relayed this to me. He was chief of police of a small town in Kansas at the time that this had happened. The police were called to a local motel for a welfare check on a suicidal guest. My uncle said that he was there with 2 other officers, and they had management unlock the door after no one had answered. They did a thorough sweep of the room, but found no one there. He said that they walked through the room several times to make sure that nothing seemed amiss or unusual. All 3 of the police officers had searched the room together. Preparing to leave, my uncle suddenly noticed the motel guest hanging in the open closet area. The no doors per usual motel closet kind of thing. The guy was already dead. My uncle said what scared him the most was that all 3 of them had searched the room so thoroughly, and he could never understand how they missed the guy who was right there in plain sight this whole time. One day we were responding to a call of an officer-involved shooting with multiple suspects. Victim happened to be a 12-year-old boy. He was found on a scene where there was a fuck ton of drugs, a gun with his fingerprints. Officer's body camera confirmed that the kid had aimed the gun at him, and he saw the slide forward. Gun all ready to be used. Safety was off. Magazine happens to be in the gun. Even after multiple warnings, the kid looked like he was going to shoot him, so the officer had shot first. After the confirmation from my supervisors to start the search from the suspect, after they had reviewed the body camera footage on scene, I go to my canine. I get my vest on. It's a level 3A. Grab my HK-416, sling it on, grab my level 3 plates, and place them on my vest, as we carry level 3A plates in our plate carriers. However, level 3 plates can be used in certain situations. This case was one of them. Suspects with guns, unknown what caliber they were. So to be safe, you put on the level 3 plates to keep yourself secure. Those usually stop at max a 44 Magnum. Level 3 usually just stops rifle rounds, like a 308, Magnum revolver, or possibly a pistol caliber. So I drive a long way out into a nice neighborhood in the South Bay, to a decent working class home. The home is clean, conservative. As I enter the bedroom, I notice that the door has been forced. Evidently, the patient's wife has been trying to wake him, but the patient locked the door. The fire department is working on a 59-year-old man wearing nothing but a bathrobe, lying unconscious in bed. There's a strong odor of ethanol about him. There's an adult video, VHS, playing on a small TV on a table at the foot of the bed. As we install the airway passage and administer the oxygen, I notice things laying next to the patient on the bed. An empty bottle, an adult toy. Is that an adult magazine? Another adult toy. I open patient's robe for an examination. His chest is a little bloody, and he appears to be wearing a rubber or a catheter. My EMT partner brings in the gurney. As we get ready to move the patient over from the bed to the gurney, I noticed a latex tube with a bulb pump, like on a blood pressure cuff, on the end with the patient. A firefighter remarks, "I don't like how this is going to end," as we roll the patient on to his left side. The tube was coming out of the bulb pump is clearly going up the patient's bottom. "Well, I'm not taking this with me," I say. I use my trauma shears to cut the tube to let out the airway, but instead of air, a trickle of nasty brown fluid comes out. Pulling the now deflated bladder attached to the tube slowly out of the patient's behind brings a big log. Double ill. Now that the thing is out of his rear, we roll him back over. I notice that he got tucked, silent of the lamb style. His junk is now purple. And I realize that the catheter, or rubber, is really a latex adult toy. I gingerly cut off the ring. Triple ew. At the hospital, the patient sobered up and then went home. A call comes in for a suicide attempt at 4:29 a.m., 1 minute before my shift was scheduled to end. I arrive on the scene at a skilled nursing facility before the fire department, with police already on the scene. I walk down the hall to where the patient's room is. Police say that you're not going to believe this. Walking into the room, I see a large black man standing beside the patient's bed, holding direct pressure on the L coastal arch, with the patient on oxygen. 15 LPM, non-rebreather mask. The patient is this scrawny little white guy in his 50s, who's at the facility because of a stroke that left him with his left side deficits and severe cognitive deficits. Holding a pair of sewing scissors, a cop says that he had stabbed himself with the scissors, pulled out 2 feet of his intestines, right over there. I stopped and picked my jaw off the floor. The cop is pointing to a table with, sure enough, a little pile of intestines on that, which looks about 2 feet long. My partner says, "Is there anything else?" I mumble something about a trauma dressing and get one out of the airway bag. I hear the partner scurry off. The orderly, the large black man, tells me that the patient wanted to kill himself by cutting out his heart. Evidently, the intestines got in the way. My partner returns with the responding fire unit. They're shuffling in like it's a total nonsense call. I hit him with 55-year-old male, made a 2-inch incision on his left abdomen, pulled out the 2 feet of bowel. As I'm pointing to the pile of guts, the looks on their face must have been exactly like mine. We get to work moving this guy, transporting him to a trauma center. Though the guy's skin signs are bad, his vitals are rock solid. Strangely, the guy seems to be in no discomfort. We get a big IV in place and run a little bit of fluid. We get to the hospital, and I give my report. The docs are unimpressed by my incision, but are hopefully more impressed by the hematoma under the wound, which has grown to 8 inches. They also seem skeptical that the patient pulled out that much bowel until I pointed out that they can look inside the basin of the patient's intestines that we have considerately brought. Everyone has the same reaction. While the student doctors are debating pain management, the attendant tells them to get their heads out of their behinds and get this guy into surgery right now. When I was going to paramedic school and attending university, I was also working for the fire department. One day I was going to class, and I noticed a traffic jam with all the fire trucks ahead of me from the squad that I was on. So I park my car. I get out. I go to the ambulance and ask if they needed anything. They said yes, Please get in." It turns out a garbage man was working the back of the garbage truck, and a driver had come over a hill behind the truck, got blinded by the sun, and then rear-ended the truck. The man's leg ended up getting smashed in between the car and the truck, and the leg was like complete hamburger. It was a minced meat of a leg. So we put a tourniquet on and got the helicopter down. For whatever reason, when the helicopter lands, one of the firefighters couldn't fly. He was too sick or too big. I really can't remember. So the chief sent me in the helicopter. I ended up flying to the hospital to drop him off and flying me back to the landing zone in town. I get into my car and I go to class. And I got unexcused tardy for being late. And I was told that there was no excuse for being late to class.
If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe, like, and hit the bell for notifications on future videos and become a stalker of the night. And I'll see you next time.